So, well, yeah, I just wanted to, if that's all right with you, we'll just kind of get right into it.
That's fine. I'm here for 30 minutes.
Yes, sir. We appreciate that time. So, kind of just opening up, we see a lot of people walking around with masks on and gloves on and, quarantining themselves for 14 days in their homes, and they have a lot of fear of the coronavirus. Do you agree with that? Should we be fearful of the coronavirus?
As a Christian, the Bible teaches us throughout the scriptures, Old and New Testaments, the Lord Jesus himself, and it was repeated redundantly throughout the Bible, tells us, commands us that we should fear not. The fear that we are seeing today is not a typical healthy respect for any disease or virus that has the potential to inflict harm on your health, such as the flu or any other disease that we might contract in this physical body. Those kind of healthy attitudes toward that which could make me ill, with proper preparations to try and keep myself healthy, of course, is normal for us, and God has given us that in the natural law of self-protection and caring for our families, etc. That's not what's happening today. The fear that we are experiencing today is a manufactured, fabricated fear by the media and by government bureaucrats to try and cause us to willingly surrender the God-given, constitutionally protected liberties that we have as Americans. And that's exactly what has happened. We have lost the First Amendment entirely. I should say lost. We should say we've given up. The First Amendment, the freedom to worship, with the freedom of peaceful assembly, the freedom to publicly redress government, the freedom to travel, the freedom to work, the freedom to buy and sell. All of these great liberties upon which the American experiment was built have been abdicated via the fear of this virus, which is a real virus, and people have really died, but it is being exaggerated to the point of fear-mongering with the purpose of causing people to lose their rational thinking relative to freedom and the well-being of our society. Our economy is shut down. People are losing jobs by the millions. Many of these jobs are never going to come back. People are spending all their life savings to try to get through this. It has produced a panic and a hysteria in the minds of people that is doing far more damage than any virus could ever do to us.
I agree with that. Is there anything that we can do as Christians to help? Maybe if we have family members that aren't saved, what can we do to kind of alleviate that fear?
Well, the thing that the Christian has over anyone else in the world is, at least the thing that we should have, we profess to have, is a resilient, undying trust in God. I mean, think about it. After all, we who call ourselves Christians have entrusted God with our eternal soul. If we can trust God with our eternal soul, why in the world will we not be able to trust God with our physical body? Jesus said that we are not to fear them which can kill the body, but fear him that is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. We are all physical beings, and we are going to die. It doesn't matter whether we are taken out through coronavirus or the flu or heart attack or cancer or car wreck or falling down a flight of stairs. The means of our death is really insignificant. We are mortal beings, and we are going to die physically. But as Christians, we know that we're going to live eternally. and we are prepared for eternal life. We're supposed to be ready to go into eternity at any time, and that is part and parcel with Christianity 101. So now all of a sudden I'm seeing Christians that seem to be putting their physical existence ahead of their eternal existence, and the philosophy and the thinking of Christian people has become more Adamic than it is Christ-like. I mean, we should be showing our unsaved community, our world and neighbors and friends, what eternal life is all about, and warning them that death could come at any time, and that we need to be prepared to die, and showing them Christ as the way, the truth, and the life, and the salvation that he's given us through his cross and resurrection, and emphasizing that this world is just a prelude to the world to come. And we should do this with confidence and with, even with joy, in the sense that we know we have eternal life and we don't have to fear death, and we're not living just for this life, that there is an eternity to come. And so these are the kind of attitudes that Christians typically have shared with the unsaved world through the generations. But right now, Christians seem to be just as fearful as the unsaved, which, as far as the unsaved are concerned, what's the difference? What's the difference between them and this so-called Christian who is demonstrating the same fear and hysteria, trepidation, worry, panic, etc., over a virus? Our Christian forebears have faced all of this and so much more for so much longer. My mom and dad were the greatest generation believers. They went through 2 world wars. They went through the Great Depression. I remember as a little boy hearing their stories of the Great Depression and how awful it was. Never one time did I ever hear manifested from them or my uncles and aunts, my grandma and grandpa. I never once heard fear brought into the picture. I never once heard people staying home from church. My mom told me emphatically several times that throughout all the Depression, she can't hardly remember a Sunday that they didn't assemble at church, no matter how bad it was, no matter how sick people were, no matter how poor they were and hungry they were. When it came Lord's Day, they all got in the buckboard wagon and they went to church, unless they were absolutely too sick to do so. And this was the spirit of the Christian throughout the ages. And now all of a sudden, this generation of Christians is cowering in fear under these stay-at-home orders, and they're actually praising the government that is stealing their constitutional liberties from them. This is one of the most bizarre things I think that could ever happen to us as believers in America.
Right. That's a very good point. So moving along with this fear that's being pushed, we hear it from the media, we hear it from politicians that this is a global pandemic. There's a pandemic happening, it's affecting everyone, there's no way to hide from it. So seems to be a narrative that's being pushed. Every channel you turn on, that's the entire coverage. That's all it is. It's just talking about this pandemic. Who do you think is benefiting from this?
Well, first, before I answer that, let me just say that this fear and paranoia, this hysteria that's being promoted by the media and people in government, is based on faulty information, and I believe it's deliberately done so. We have a physician; she's an internal medicine doctor at Liberty Fellowship here in Kalispell, Montana, where I pastor. And last Sunday, she gave about a 15-minute delivery to our people regarding what's happening concerning the counting of COVID-19 deaths. She's been a physician for over 30 years. Writing death certificates is a routine part of her job. And she told us very point blank that the CDC has instructed physicians to label people's death certificates as dying from COVID-19 without any evidence that they even had COVID-19, without any scientific data to support that they have COVID-19. If they presume that they have COVID-19, they're to list that as the cause of death. An assumption, a speculation that they might have coronavirus, they list the cause of death as COVID-19. Many of these people that are said to be died of coronavirus is just a big fat lie. They are lying to us about the number of people who are dying from COVID. It's interesting that while all these COVID-19 deaths are spiking, if people that are paying attention know that the deaths associated with heart disease are plummeting. So not as many people are dying this year of heart disease than usual. Is that what we're supposed to assume? Pneumonia deaths are plummeting. Now I'm talking about as far as the records are concerned. So we're to assume that, boy, this year has really been good for pneumonia patients. A whole lot less of them are dying from pneumonia. A whole lot less people are dying from diabetes. A whole lot people are dying from heart disease. Really? No. There's not fewer people dying from heart disease. There's not fewer people dying from diabetes. There's not fewer people dying from pneumonia. What's happening is the doctors, instead of listing their causes of death as those diseases, they're listing them as coronavirus. So all these diseases that are going down actually are helping to escalate the rate of death according to the medical statistics for coronavirus. It's a fabrication. It's a lie. And this video that this Dr. Bukacek put on our webpage, we put it online on our YouTube page. I don't know, last time I heard, I think maybe 400,000 people have watched it already and sharing it with people. I mean, doctors have an obligation to start telling the truth, and thankfully a few of them are starting to speak out. So we have to acknowledge that we're being lied to, that this is not all accurate. Not only that, let's don't forget that according to the statistics regarding coronavirus, 80% of everyone who contracts coronavirus shows only mild or even no symptoms. 80% of the people who contract coronavirus have a cold, and that's it. Their life is not threatened. They're not in the hospital. They're not receiving emergency treatment. They don't have to go to one of these COVID-19 special centers with everybody and, masks and gloves and all. They have a cold. It's 80%. The median age of people that have died, even in Italy, where the deaths have been greater, was 80 years of age. That's the median age of death of the corona patients in Italy, 80 years of age. And not only that, the vast percentage of, like 99% in Italy now, of the patients that have died there had at least one other underlying disease before they contracted the coronavirus. And many of them had 2 or 3 different diseases. So the coronavirus comes along and it's the straw that broke the camel's back. But they were already very sick with a weakened immune system before they ever got the coronavirus. Those are the people that are at the most risk of succumbing to the virus. It's just like the same thing with the flu or any upper respiratory infection. If you have a weakened immune system, if you already have other diseases in your body and you contract a virus such as that, then you're more prone to succumbing to it. The vast majority of healthy people with a good immune system, if they get the virus, they either A, don't even know they have it, or B, if they experience mild cold-like symptoms. So let's not forget that. This is a total manipulation by the mainstream media, by the establishment medical community by the government to try and force people to surrender their freedoms. And as far as who's benefiting, I mean, you know who's benefiting? The big government statists who want to take our liberties away from us and establish a police state where that we look to the government for everything. They're benefiting from this. The politicians who are buying votes by giving all kinds of federal assistance to people who are staying at home, they're benefiting. And this big pharma is going to benefit like crazy because the end game here is forced vaccination. And that's what Fauci's talking about. That's what Bill Gates is talking about. Even Donald Trump, unfortunately, is talking about this stuff. You know, forced vaccination, taking the freedom of choice away from somebody who says, you know what, I have a healthy immune system. God has given me a natural immunity, and he's given that to all of us. And unless things happen to take away that natural immunity and weaken it, we are able to fight off diseases. I mean, but we get these diseases, whether it's the flu, whatever strain it is, the measles, chickenpox, and we develop, our body naturally develops an immunity to it, and that's how society protects itself from these diseases. Now what they're doing is by telling everybody to stay away from each other, closing schools, closing businesses, closing establishments where there's contact. So now then people are not going to develop the virus until perhaps later, and the natural immunity that would be developing in society is not there. So the result is going to be even worse for people down the road because of the lack of immunity that would naturally build. So they are deliberately doing this. So that means now we must depend on this unnatural, man-made vaccine, and that they're going to require that we take, of which we have no idea what the consequences are going to be in our body. I mean, we already know that the flu virus itself has killed more people than any other vaccine that we know of. And there's so many different strains of the flu. There's no way the flu shot can cover all those viruses. And the results of many of the flu shots have been people getting sick and even people dying with the vaccine, after the vaccine. So these are the kind of things that they're going to mandate, which is going to benefit everybody associated with Big Pharma. It's going to benefit all the politicians that mandate these orders. It's going to benefit all the guys like this Fauci creep, who's no doubt the recipient of millions and millions of dollars of people that are using him to scare the American people into surrendering their liberties. And the WHO and the CDC that are going to continue to reap millions and billions of government dollars because of how they're needed now, because they've got to find all these vaccines and they've got to make these I mean, they're the people that are going to benefit. It's certainly not going to be the American people.
Right. Yeah, you can see them setting it up how it's going to be a reoccurring thing, that it's not like we're just going to fight this and then it's going to be over and done with and back to normal. You can see them laying the groundwork of, oh no, this is going to be a yearly thing, just like the flu, and you're going to have to get your vaccine. And even people, when they say like, oh, well, they're not going to force people to get vaccines. I mean, you know, if you don't buy that conspiracy, like, oh, that's just a conspiracy, you know, they're not going to force anyone. Well, I mean, they already force your kids, you know, like if you want to send your kids to school, they're going to have to get the new vaccine, and they'll just lump that onto the list of all the vaccines they have to have, and they'll have to have their card. And so they'll make it, you know, socially unacceptable. Like, you know, if you want to put your kids in school or take them to certain events or do certain things, you definitely see them laying the groundwork, and even trying to push, you know, because they've always pushed the vaccines on the elderly as far as the flu, like you said. You know, they always push that, trying to get the flu vaccine, and this will just be another thing that they sell every year. You know, oh, you got to get your coronavirus vaccine. You can see how they're tracking towards that. Why do you think it's because of the fear? Why do you think people are so free, or, you know, will so freely give away their liberty? You know, as we've seen it happen over these years, with the Patriot Act, and you know, they just kind of go along with it. Why are people so free to give their liberties away little by little?
Well, yeah, that's a good question, and the answer, I think, is a long one. But you know, we are so far removed from tyranny as a country. We we have never tasted what our founders and our forebears went through. We can't relate to what nations around the world have gone through and are going through right now. We've lost touch with persecution, which was part of the church's existence until the United States was birthed. This great country of freedom for Christians especially to worship and all the other liberties that we acknowledge in our Bill of Rights. We're so far removed from persecution. We're so far removed from the stranglehold of tyranny and things of that nature. So we don't have a practical reality check relative to what it's like. That's part of the problem. The other part of the problem is the principles of liberty, the natural law, principles of liberty that God has given us in His Word have not been taught in the United States for at least 100 years. They used to be taught in the classrooms. They used to be taught in colleges. They were taught in the churches, from the pulpits. They were taught from the time we were little. The great principles of freedom as given us by our Creator that are codified in our Bill of Rights and Declaration of Independence, etc., those things were taught. They're not taught anymore. If there's any mention of them, it's a critical mention. And so we have not just one generation, but we have many generations of Americans, including Christian Americans, who have no theological, scriptural, natural understanding of what freedom really is. They truly do not know the definition of freedom. They don't know what it is. They don't even know how to recognize it. And so whenever this happens, and we are stripped basically of our entire First Amendment, the American people, because they are looking to government to take care of them, which has been a gradual process over the last 100 years as well, people no longer look to God and to their society and to churches and neighbors and all these kind of things like we used to. We look to government. And, of course, everything government provides, it first has to steal from somebody else. And that's the only way government can do anything to help anybody, is because they have to take it from somebody else. They have no power to produce anything. All they know how to do is steal from somebody and then give it to somebody else. But the people that are the recipients of this theft, they don't have an appreciation for how this money came to them. All they know is that it came from the government, and they're appreciative of the government. When the politicians come along on election time and say, vote for me and I'm going to give you more benefits, well, they're going to vote for them because they want more benefits, and they don't even think about the people that are being stolen, they're losing their benefits because of these politicians that are thieves and using that as bribery for people to receive the benefits to keep voting for them. These concepts are completely unknown. The preachers don't pay any attention to them. They haven't taught these principles in, like I said, 100 years. Our people are literally ignorant of their history. They're ignorant of what liberty is all about. And so when this comes along and the people act the way they do, I think all it is, it's an illustration of how totally, thoroughly ignorant the Christians and the people of America have become relative to what freedom really means.
So speaking on people's behavior, so we've noticed now, a lot of places have gone on lockdown and shut down. You're supposed to stay in your home, and you drive the freeway and all the signs say stay home, stop the spread. There's definitely, and you can see, and I'm not sure if you're on Facebook, I'm sure you are, there's a new Facebook thing where around your photo on your tag, you can put this little band around it that is like your stamp, your seal of approval saying, hey, I support, it says I think it says stay home, save lives. And that's like letting the world know that you support, staying home, and you support the shutdown, you support the narrative. and it's there's real social shaming happening. And so when I pull up Facebook and you can even see videos of people screaming at other persons for how dare you be outside. But a lot of it on Facebook, you can see people when they're just asking like a random question like, hey, is this place open, or do you know if I can get this or I can get that, or anyone have something like this? There's just all these messages of like, how dare you, you should stay at home, and they're just screaming at people, online, that how dare you violate, you're going to kill someone, you're going to kill your kids if you go outside. Can you talk about the social shaming that's happening and the bullying on social media through this?
Well, I think all that shows us is how it happened in Germany. For years, I remember people asking the question, how could the people of Germany let that happen to them? How could they go into totalitarianism so quickly? Well, look around. They did it the same way that we're doing it, or we're doing it the same way they did it. I mean, that's what happened then. I mean, it became politically unpopular to oppose the regime and the Fuhrer. And so it wasn't long in that those little pockets of resistance were paying a very heavy price, not only from the government, but also from their friends and neighbors, and even sometimes their own family members. Jesus talked about that. He said, the Lord talked about that a man's foes will be those of his own household. People turning against their own brothers and sisters, and sons and daughters, and moms and dads, etc. I mean, that's happening right now. It's what you're talking about. These people are totally given over to the spirit of slavery. That's the bottom line. In their heart, in their mind, they have given their heart over to the spirit of servitude and slavery. And, once you do that, you'll never be happy until everyone else is also enslaved. As long as there's one person that has an independent, free spirit, you must stamp that out. You must, because they're an enemy to you, because you have given yourself to slavery, and you can't have somebody walking around in your neighborhood or walking around in your family that's promoting freedom. That exposes you as the slave that you are, and so you must shame them. You must do everything you can to pressure them into accepting the chains that you've already accepted. So that's what we're seeing. We're seeing people that have already in their hearts surrendered to servitude and slavery, tyranny and oppression. And they will not be satisfied or content until everybody else has also put the chains on. And this is exactly what happened in Germany. The exact same thing. We're seeing it. We don't have to ask the question anymore. How did it happen in Germany? It's happening right now. The positive thing I'm seeing, fortunately, is that there are people that are starting to wake up and speak out. There are doctors, there are preachers that are taking a stand, there are individuals, regardless of their profession, that are taking a stand. There's radio shows like yours that are popping up, and the people in the media, mostly independent media, but even a few in the mainstream media that are saying, "Hey, wait a minute, this is enough. We've gone too far already. We got to back up." So people are starting to speak up. I guess the question is it too little, too late? How long? Here's the thing. Let me just leave with this. I wrote this in my column that was produced today. I have a national syndicated column that goes out every Thursday, and the title of the column is "It's Time for Resurrection." And here's what I say in the column. If every church and every pastor, if every evangelical pastor and church in the country would just open the doors of their churches and everybody go back to church on Sunday, just everybody go back to church, this tyrannical lockdown would end in one day. It would stop it. It would give our country back to the people. If every Christian and every pastor would just say, "This is enough. This is Resurrection Sunday. We're going to be in church," and everybody just go to church, despite whatever lockdown order they've got in their community or state. What are they going to do? They're going to lock up thousands and maybe millions of people, depending on the size of the city, that are going to church. No, they're not going to do it. It would be, the gig would be up. The intimidation would be over. The facade would be blown, and that would be it. They would realize that they no longer have the power to intimidate the people. They're not afraid anymore. They can't use these fear tactics to keep them, biting their fingernails and watching the news on television all day long, propagandizing. They can't do it. They've lost it. It would turn the country back to the liberties that we had before this started a month ago, and it could be done in one day. It could be done in one day. The pastors and Christians of America have the power to stop this on Easter Sunday. It could be done in one day. How many will do it? There are few that are. But if they all would, this thing would be over on Sunday. By Monday, it would be America would be back to semi-normal. One day, and we could stop this.
Well, that's very powerful, Pastor. I appreciate you spending the time with us and educating our listeners here, and we know that they're going to appreciate it. So we just want to thank you for sharing your time with us and sharing your message. And God bless you, sir. Have a great day. Okay.
Thank you. Can I give the website out before?
Yeah,
I go?
please. Yeah,
if people want to get my column that I just talked about, also the Dr. Bukacek's video, etc. ChuckBaldwinLive.com is the website, ChuckBaldwinLive.com. The Facebook page is Chuck Baldwin MT, and that's the same address for YouTube. Chuck Baldwin MT, short for Montana. Chuck Baldwin MT. Chuck Baldwin MT for both YouTube and for Facebook. And the website, ChuckBaldwinLive.com. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pastor, for talking with us. I appreciate it.